And hello there, RosterWatch Nation. It's your friendly neighborhood Trash Man, and this is the Garbage Grab brought to you by MyBookie. More importantly, it's the fantasy fallout going into Week 13 of the fantasy football season, and the NFL season for that matter. We're almost to the playoffs, fantasy football playoffs, that is, but we have one more week to hold the line or possibly sneak into the postseason if we're not quite there yet. Hopefully these potential tweaks to your roster can help you pull through. Let's get started with the Thursday night game, the Thanksgiving game. Well, it wasn't night. It was Thursday afternoon or morning in some places. The Texans at the Lions. Texans won this one 41-25. Duke Johnson managed to salvage his day with a touchdown reception, but he's been lackluster in relief of David Johnson thus far. David is able to come off of injured reserve this week, so hopefully we don't have to bother with Duke anymore. He's not somebody you want to have to rely on in the playoffs, and you might have to, because Will Fuller just announced he's been suspended for 6 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy. So you might have to rely on Duke a little while longer. And you might want to pick up Kiki QT, who had come into the third receiver spot for the Texans with Randall Cobb and Kenny Stills out. Stills actually got released, but he only got 3 targets for 2 receptions and 17 yards. QT did. So I would normally say he isn't worth adding, but with this new Will Fuller news, I would say he's actually, I wouldn't say a must add, but pretty close to it. On the other side of the ball, Adrian Peterson picked up 55 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kerryon Johnson put up 98 all-purpose yards against the Texans. The Lions play the Bears this week, so Kerryon makes for the stronger play after DeAndre Swift can't go, as he's more involved in the passing game, and they'll need to be against the Bears. Mohamed Sanu joined the Lions on field for the first time on Thanksgiving and came down with a touchdown grab. He only had 4 targets for 34 yards, though, so I'm not particularly interested in him, especially if Kenny Golladay gets in a couple practices this week and can go. On to the next game, Washington at Cowboys. Washington won this one 41-16. Peyton Barber actually had 11 carries for 57 yards behind Antonio Gibson in this one, but most of his action came in garbage time. There's nothing to see here as far as Barber goes. Logan Thomas is in the top 5 in routes run for tight ends, but he averages only 4 targets a game. He managed to score on Thanksgiving, and that's what you're relying on if you own him. He's entirely touchdown dependent, as are a lot of tight ends this season. The Cowboys are playing without their 2 starting offensive tackles, and it's showing. The fact that they're playing Baltimore this week only compounds the difficulty that they'll have moving the ball. I would argue that no Dallas player is a must-start this week. Ezekiel Elliott has only scored once in 6 games in his last 6 games, and he only managed 39 yards against Washington on Thursday. Amari Cooper has the most upside this week, as the Cowboys will probably be playing from behind and have to throw it up to keep in the game, to stay in the game, rather. On to the next game, Raiders at Falcons. Raiders got blowed out 6-41. The Raiders were hot garbage in this one, and Josh Jacobs injured his ankle to add insult to injury. Allegedly, Jacobs' injury appeared worse than it actually is, so he may be able to go this week. Devontae Booker needs to be added in most formats just in case, as he'd be an easy start against the Jets this week if Jacobs sits. Nelson Aguilar is showing up enough on a weekly basis to warrant flex consideration in 12-team or larger formats. He's the Raiders' de facto number 1 receiver, and will have an easy time getting open against the Jets this week, and a must-win game for the Raiders. On the other side of the ball, Edo Smith outgained and outscored Brian Hill on Sunday, possibly moving ahead of him in the pecking order if Todd Gurley cannot go this week. Neither Smith nor Hill makes for a decent play outside of deep leagues against the Saints, though, as New Orleans has the best run defense in the league. On to the next game, the Chargers at Bills. Chargers lost this one 17-27. Austin Eckler made his return to game action since going down with a hamstring injury in week 4, and he didn't have any setbacks. He garnered 16 targets, so it's safe to say he's back at running back 1 status. Josh Kelly did get 7 carries and a score, but we expected some thunder to go with Eckler's lightning. It was Kelly's only score since week 1, so there's no need to rush out and add him. You can't really use him in the playoffs unless you're in a very deep league. Devin Singletary, on the other side of the ball, surged with 14 touches in this one after only a handful of touches in his last 2 games. Zach Moss still got the red zone action, though. Singletary could sustain some value with John Brown on injured reserve as a passing game option, but he's only scored once this season, so his upside will be limited. Gabriel Davis led the Bills in receiving on Sunday with 79 yards and a touchdown, though he only had 4 targets on the day. Those 4 targets were actually good enough to tie him for second with Cole Beasley on the team, so Davis makes for a shrewd addition to rosters as long as Brown is out. He's got some upside for sure. On to the next game, Giants at Bengals. Giants won this one 19-17, putting them in first place in the NFC East with a 4-7 record. Daniel Jones injured his hamstring on Sunday and had to leave the game after trying to tough it out. Colt McCoy relieved him and secured the victory. It looks like Jones might be out for a couple of weeks, so McCoy should get to start against Seattle this week. It's a wide receiver's dream, but I'm not sure McCoy is the guy to open it up downfield. I feel like Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram are safe this week, but it's going to be iffy for the likes of Darius Slayton. Wayne Gallman has benefited from being the main back in New York, but Devontae Freeman may return this week. Gallman has done enough to keep his job, but Freeman could eat into his touches, and Gallman's success has been predicated on volume. On the other side of the ball, the Bengals offense is in shambles, whether it's Ryan Finley or Brandon Allen under center. T. Higgins led the Bengals. I say led in quotation marks, as he had only 44 yards, but he did manage a touchdown that saved his day. Don't rely on it happening again in Week 13 against the Dolphins for him or any Bengal. Gio Bernard will be a low-upside flex play and the only Bengal with anything resembling a decent fantasy floor. On to the next game, Titans and Colts. Titans ran away with this one, 45-26. Jonnu Smith got us a big goose egg on Sunday with Jeff Swaim operating as the number 1 tight end for the Titans for some reason that I do not know of currently. Smith is as touchdown dependent as they come, but he should have a decent chance of bouncing it back against Cleveland this week. On the other side of the ball, Nyheim Hines played ahead of Jordan Wilkins on Sunday, racking up 95 yards on 18 touches. One would think Jonathan Taylor would get his bell cow rolled back since he's COVID negative after getting 22 carries in Week 11. But this Colts backfield is hard to decipher and predict. Hines would sustain value as a passing back regardless. T.Y. Hilton had his best game of the season, scoring his first touchdown. Seriously, his first touchdown of the season and picking up 81 yards in the process. This was a game in which the Colts were playing catch-up throughout, so I'm not bullish on Hilton getting this kind of action on a regular basis. The Colts do play the Texans this week, though, so perhaps it's a get-right situation for most of their skill players. And then Michael Pittman didn't have a big day, only 22 yards, but he did end up with 9 targets on the day. He's worth starting against the Texans this week, as is really any starting wide receiver. On to the next game, Browns at Jaguars. Browns won this one 27-25. Kareem Hunt has seen his touches go down in every game since Nick Chubb has returned as the starter in Cleveland. And with dwindling goal line opportunities, Hunt is more of a running back 3 with limited upside right now. The Bengals are having too much success handing the ball off to Chubb. Austin Hooper splitting what limited targets he gets with Harrison Bryant. Hooper managed to come away with a touchdown on Sunday, but he had 13 yards otherwise. Hooper's floor is too low to rely on unless you're desperate. On the other side of the ball, Colin Johnson came from nowhere to lead the Jags in receiving 8 targets, 4 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown with DJ Shark and Chris Conley absent. I guess Matt Glennon just went for the tallest guy on the field. Colin Johnson is 6'6". Or maybe it's an example of the second team doctrine where you have a backup quarterback who is used to throwing to usually backup wide receiver. And Glennon and Johnson are both of those things. The Jags face Minnesota and their second best wide receiver matchup secondary this week. So maybe Johnson is worth a dart throw if neither Shark nor Conley can make it onto the field this week. On to the next game, Panthers at Vikings. Panthers barely lost this one 27-28. The Panthers have a bye week in Week 13, so there isn't much to take away here for them. But Mike Davis may have seen his last fantasy-worthy game unless the Panthers decide to tank and preserve Christian McCaffrey for next season. Dalvin Cook injured his ankle on Sunday but was able to return to the game. Monitor his practices this week, as ankles can swell, but he should be good to go for week 13. There were several Vikings pass catchers who came into fantasy relevance on Sunday, with the Vikings going tit for tat with the Panthers all day. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about any of them moving forward, though, as Adam Thielen should come off the COVID list in time for week 13's matchup with the Jaguars. On to the next game, Cardinals at Patriots. Cardinals lost this one 17-20. With Larry Fitzgerald sitting out due to testing positive for COVID, Andy Isabella ran as a slot receiver for Arizona, tying for second in targets with 6, but with Christian Kirk behind DeAndre Hopkins, who had 7. Isabella only caught 4 balls for 33 yards, but he should stay involved this week, as Fitzgerald is unlikely to get off the list in time to play. The Cardinals will face the Rams in their number 1 pass defense this week, so it's going to be boom or bust should you take a chance on Isabella. On the other side of the ball, James White only saw 6 touches and 17 yards on the day, but he managed to score twice all the same. He's taken over the passing back role with Rex Burkhead down for the count, and Sony Michel got 0 touches, even though he was active. White's touchdown upside makes him the only other Patriot than Damian Harris to retain weekly value behind Cam Newton, as far as I'm concerned. On to the next game, Dolphins at Jets. Dolphins won this one 20-3. DeAndre Washington played ahead of Matt Breida on Sunday, getting 15 touches to Breida's 10 and outgaining him 60 to 53 yards. There's a strong possibility Myles Gaskin and or Salvin Ahmed returns to action this week, so it could be all for naught, but Washington is worth picking up in the meantime. Both Rashad Perriman and Denzel Mims received 8 targets against Miami, both ahead of Jamison Crowder, who had 5. The Jets were playing from behind all games, so that's probably why. But the Jets are probably going to be playing from behind for the remainder of the season. In any case, both Perriman and Mims are worth flexing in deeper leagues against Las Vegas this week. They've actually been pretty serviceable in PPR formats. It's fall. Is it? Yeah, it's still fall. And in my bookie, or is it winter now? It's after Thanksgiving. And in my bookie, that can mean only one thing. It's winning season. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means free bets, super contests, Survivor, and more. At my bookie, winning season is all about your chance to win big. Bet NFL, UFC, and then some. The craziest sports fall of your lifetime is here. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, and collect your cash. Invest in your intuition. Select from hundreds of future bets, or you can bet games in real time with MyBookie's live betting. Put that big brain of yours to good use. Use promo code ROSTER and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and games you bet. Thousands of cross-sport wagers, props, and parlays await. Sign up now to bet with the best and celebrate your victory. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie. On to the next game, Saints at Broncos. Saints won this one 31-3, as if it was in any question or doubt, considering that the Broncos did not have an actual quarterback available on that afternoon. Latavius Murray had his best game of the season, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns against the quarterbackless Broncos, as the Saints ran the ball all game with a comfortable lead. Alvin Kamara's value has sunk since Taysom Hill has come under center, and I don't see that changing soon. There's a chance that the Saints resort to throwing the ball against Atlanta this week if Julio Jones returns and forces the issue. But Kamara and Michael Thomas are anything but sure things right now, as it's pretty much just Hill and Murray running the ball. We can't really take anything away on the Broncos side of the ball. They'll have an actual quarterback next week, so we'll revisit them going into week 14. On to the next game, Rams and 49ers. 49ers won this one 23-20. Raheem Mostert had 18 touches for 43 yards and a touchdown in his return to gameplay against the Rams, 6 more than Jeff Wilson, who ended up with 12 for 43 yards. Jerick McKinnon was the odd man out with only 5 touches on the day, though he was on the field for all of the passing downs. Mostert was the only player to handle a carry inside the 10, and he's the only 49er back you can trust going into the playoffs. Aside from Deebo Samuel, Jordan Reed was the only 49er pass catcher who had more than 5 targets on the day, though only 2 of his 6 targets connected for only 18 yards. Nick Mullins missed Reed on a couple of potentially major gains, but Reed should rebound this week against the Bills. He's actually worth streaming. Cam Akers, on the other side of the ball, led the Rams' backfield with 9 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown, most of which came on a 61-yard scamper in the third quarter. Even so, he looked more alive than Darrell Henderson, who hasn't looked the same since coming back from a quad injury. The performance likely earned Akers more run going forward, and he's available in over 70% of leagues right now, so you can go out and get him. On to the next game, Chiefs at Buccaneers. Chiefs won this one 27-24. The running wasn't really working for the Chiefs, the running game that is, but they had major success through the air, mainly through Tyreek Hill, who had a career day, 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. 5 players had 5 or more targets, and Sammy Watkins was second on the team with 7. He only came away with 38 yards, but Watkins is well worth rostering if he's been dropped in your league, and he's been dropped in over half of them. Antonio Brown was 5th in the target totem pole on Sunday with only 3 targets on the day for 11 yards. The Bucs have a bye this week, and then they face Minnesota, the second worst secondary in the league. Brown should get back to business in that one, but he's going to be boom or bust during his time in Tampa with so many receiving options. You know what isn't boom or bust? The Fantasy Life app. It's one of the smartest things you can do, downloading the Fantasy Life app. It's a free app. We use them for their news alerts and community. The Fantasy Life app sends breaking news alerts faster than anyone else. They monitor thousands of reporters so you don't have to, and send important news as soon as it breaks. You never miss a relevant injury, trade, or other update. The Fantasy Life app also has in-depth reports and on-demand advice from a massive community. Download the Fantasy Life app for iOS or Android at fantasylifeapp.com. On to the last game on the Sunday night slate, Bears at Packers. Bears lost this one 25-41. 41 was a normal score on Sunday for some reason. I think like 3 teams scored 41 points. Mitchell Trubisky was terrible. Well, what else did you expect? But David Montgomery was able to carve out a nice fantasy line, and so was Allen Robinson. Everyone else on the Bears was pretty useless, though Darnell Mooney did get 9 targets. The Bears faced rudderless Lions this week, so maybe Moody and Anthony Miller will splash, but I don't feel excited about anyone in this offense with Trubisky under center. Jamal Williams had 17 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown on Sunday night, but the Packers had the game well in hand for the majority of that time. That being said, Williams has been more than serviceable in 5 of his last 6 games and works well as a flex in most formats. Then Alan Lazard's return has complicated things for Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who didn't record a catch on Sunday night. Lazard, on the other hand, came away with 4 receptions for 23 yards and a touchdown. They're both wide receiver 4s going into Week 13 with the Eagles. Anyways, that's it for the Fantasy Fallout this week, going into Week 13 of the NFL season. Hopefully there's some nugget of information or a few of them that you can use. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you heard, give us a comment, give us a follow, give us a subscription at RosterWatch.com. Come join the RosterWatch Nation. Until then, this has been the Trash Man signing off from the Garbage Grab on behalf of MyBookie.com and RosterWatch.com. Until next time, be ready.